Hello and welcome to the Disc of Truth. I'm Jono.
And I'm James.
And as you know, here at the Disc of Truth we talk about everything and anything. Nothing is off the table. So today we're going to talk about God of War. We're going to talk briefly about the originals, because that is where the story began. But then we're going to talk about the development and the characters and what we liked about the 2018 version and of course Ragnarok.
Mm-hmm.
That does mean full spoilers, full spoiler warning. We're not going to. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. We're going to talk about the ending. We're going to talk about everything that happened.
Yeah. So if you've not played it,
if you've not played it, by all means turn off now. If you have played it, then let us know in the comments below what you thought, and don't forget to give us a like and subscribe. And I said let us know. Anyway, let's get into it. So. James has only recently finished Ragnarok, so
yes, finally,
as of time of recording, he finished it the day before.
Yep.
So, so I'm going to pass it over to James just to give me his thoughts on finally finishing Ragnarok, and then we'll go back and we'll start with the originals and make our way forward. But James, what did you think of the finale?
I thought it was very, very good. I really wish that I hadn't put it off as long as I did. So for those of you who've actually finished Ragnarok, I stopped playing after you meet Thrud when you're assaulting Asgard, so like 20 minutes from the end. I didn't know I was that close to the end. So
when he told me where he was, I lost my shit a little bit.
Yeah, I literally jumped in, hit a couple of enemies, and then suddenly I'm like, oh, I'm fighting Thor, and now I'm fighting Odin. Okay, yeah, I really was very at the end.
Yeah.
By the way, those fight sequences were phenomenal. I very, very much enjoyed the Thor fight. The different stages of it was brilliant. The speed and the ferocity of that battle was really, really cool. I preferred that to the Odin fight, I must admit. The Odin one I actually did in one go, so I was a little disappointed with that. However, it did play very, very well. But the story, I mean, that is one of the big shining points of it, and obviously we had a brief discussion about it. It really does round off things very, very nicely. And if you are invested in the characters, which you probably should be by that point because they're incredibly well written, there's it does get you, doesn't it? It gets you.
It does. I'm not ashamed to admit that I 100% teared up at the ending because the character development, and it just really, like, I don't know, something about it just really struck me, and I was like, this is like so good to see this, see how Kratos has developed over the course of the series, and who he is now. And I would be perfectly happy if they never made another God of War game. If they made a game where Atreus was the star, fine. I would be happy with that. But I personally would love it. Not love, but I personally wouldn't mind if they never made another God of War with Kratos as the lead.
Yeah, Kratos has had his character arc, and he's come to a place where he's in a position he didn't think he'd ever achieve. And I would be disappointed if they then went, oh yeah, let's make another one, because they'd have to throw something else at it.
Yeah, because they find out in Ragnarok that, I mean, in the game Ragnarok, that Ragnarok the event isn't what they thought it would be.
Mm-hmm.
Ragnarok symbolizes the fall of Asgard, not the end of the world.
Yes.
So the other 8 realms are fine, but Asgard gets destroyed. And when they realize, they find that out in Ragnarok itself, which was something that essentially had been hidden from Odin, and obviously it makes it easier to accept that Ragnarok is going to happen.
Mm-hmm. But
at the same time, it also, Kratos doesn't want to be that person anymore. He doesn't want to be the destroyer of Olympus in the Norse realms.
I mean, it's a strong theme throughout when you just look at Kratos, that he's a pretty much a recluse, isn't he? He's living out in the woods. He's put his weapons away. He's got his wife and he's got his kid, and it's a world that he's not very comfortable in it, but that's where he lives and that's what he wants to do. But he knows exactly what he doesn't want to be. And every single turn throughout God of War 2018 and Ragnarok, it's the fighting of the destiny, and it's him being pulled back in And obviously, yeah, with the ending, seeing what's really been going on, it is yeah, it's quite a nice. It is quite a nice little round off, isn't it? And you wouldn't want to poke holes in that, to be honest, because it's
Yeah,
gone through. It's gone through enough. This happened because of this. This is what was hidden. This is what's really going on. This is the revelation from this. You wouldn't want to then pick at that, because I think that was perfectly well written. It is exactly what it needed to be, no more, no less.
yeah, exactly. So I want to put this. We're going to put this talk on hold for a second.
Okay.
And we're going to take a step back, and many steps back, and we're going to go back to the original trilogy. You know, the original series back on the PS2 days. Did you just out of interest, James? I think we've talked about this before. For the viewers, have you ever played them?
No, I have not. I have seen little clips of the games, but I have not actually played them, and I know nothing about the story beyond what has been hinted at in 2018 and Ragnarok.
Okay. So just to explain, I'll go into a little bit about the plot of God of War. We won't stick on them too long, I guess. But the origin story of Kratos is that he is a Spartan captain. He's very good at what he does. He's leading his troops into many victorious battles. He's got a wife and a daughter, and he's very good at what he does. So, but he goes into battle against the barbarian king, and he's being defeated. They're being defeated by the barbarian king. So what he does is he prays to Ares, saying that he will pledge his servitude to the god of war in exchange for victory in the battle. And that's what he does. He gives him the blades of chaos. He essentially they become in a way a part of him. The blades of chaos. Yeah, they are attached. They are literally fused.
Yeah, they're chained to him, aren't they?
They are
you see all the
not
scars.
even chained. They are fully fused onto him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so obviously they aren't chains, but they are fully fused onto his arms, so he can't get rid of them. And obviously because of those chains, he's able to beat the barbarian king, and he fulfills his promise to Ares to serve him. So he goes to war a lot. He blah 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 all that stuff, and then he gets ordered by Ares to attack a village that is loyal to Athena, and obviously he doesn't like Athena for whatever. And what he doesn't know is that Ares has transported his wife and his daughter into this village, and in a killing rage, he kills every single person in that village, including his wife and his daughter, right? All because Ares believes that if he gets rid of any attachments that Kratos has, it will turn him into the perfect warrior. Now, Kratos, when he realizes what he's done, is so riddled with despair and anguish that he rejects Ares. He's like, no, I'm not going to serve you anymore, and whatever. And the oracle of the village curses him, and so that the ashes of his wife and daughter stain his skin. That's why he's so pale.
Oh, okay.
And he becomes known as the Ghost of Sparta because he's forever cursed to have the ashes of his family on his skin. So that's why when you see other Olympians, that maybe a bit more of an olive skin tone is what it's known as, but Kratos is just as white as a ghost because of that curse. That then leads to him. He then agrees to serve the gods, in terms of like Athena and whatever. He rejects Ares, but he agrees to, as long as they can free him of his curse, essentially, of his ties to Ares. So after he does that for 10 years, he's then tired of that, and he's like, okay, I want to be done now. And Athena says, okay, you can be free as long as you kill Ares. That is your one last mission, to kill Ares. Okay. So that is what the original God of War is all about. So long story short, he gets there, he kills Ares, and they say, you're free of your servitude, but we can't free you of the nightmares that have been plaguing you in regards to killing his wife and child. So he tries to kill himself, and Athena saves him and grants him the new seat as the new god of war. Okay? So then the second game happens. Kratos is leading successful campaigns as the god of war. The gods aren't happy with the fact that he's leading the Spartans to so many wars, blah blah blah. So they strip him of his powers and try and kill him. And he's like, nah, I'm not having this. So this is a recurring theme, by the way, that Kratos literally calls out of hell. Not literally calls, but claws his way out of hell to get revenge. So he enlists the aid of the Titans, essentially. From the second game, he battling his way through, killing different people, blah blah blah. He fights the Fates, kills the Fates, goes back in time to save the Titans from being killed at the end of the Great War, to then lead them into battle against the gods of Olympus, which then brings us on to God of War 3, where he kills all the gods he can find. Every time he kills a god, it unleashes some sort of destruction onto Olympus. So he kills Apollo, who also, another name for Apollo is Helios. In the game, he's known as Helios. That plunges Greece into eternal darkness. When he kills Hermes, it unleashes a plague upon Greece. When he kills Poseidon, all the seas go wild and flood areas of Greece. He kills Hades, that releases all the souls of the dead, so on and so forth. So he kills Hera, which kills all of the plant life, because all of these gods have they've got
they all
something.
do something for that's all,
So and this is all in his battle to get to Zeus. So then he beats Zeus. There is more to the story. This is just very basic, going through to explain. At the end of, so this is where it's important. So this is the part that, so at the end of God of War 3, he's killed Athena, but he didn't want to kill Athena. Athena sacrificed herself at the end of God of War 2 to save Zeus. Right.
Okay.
So also Kratos is Zeus's son. By the way, I forgot to mention that part.
Okay, that's a big one.
Yeah, forgot to mention that one. But so yeah, I probably should have mentioned that one a bit earlier. But so Athena has somehow transcended to a higher plane of existence, as you do. But what you find out is that this all comes back to Pandora's box, right? So the reason that Kratos is able to kill Ares in the first place is because he opens Pandora's box and absorbs the power in there. That gives him the power to kill Ares, okay? Inside that box, as you know, the legend, the myth of Pandora's box, it holds all the evils in the world.
Yeah.
But what you find out in the game is that Athena also put hope into it.
Okay.
For whatever reason, right? So when Kratos absorbed that power, he also absorbed the power of hope, but he didn't absorb the evils. The evils went out into the world. So anyway, after he's killed Zeus, at the end of God of War 3, Athena appears to him and says, give me what you took from the box. And he's like, the box was empty. And she's like, no, the power of hope is inside of you. Give it to me so that I can establish a new rule over Greece and rule it for myself. Kratos is like, nah, the time of gods is over. So what you believe, he kills himself. He stabs himself with the sword of Olympus, or the blade of Olympus, and kills. And well, as you think, he kills himself. But what that does is that releases hope into the world for mankind. And then there's a post-credit scene where you see a blood trail, blah blah blah. So it's implied that Kratos might have survived. That then brings us to Kratos has travelled to the Norse realms. He's had he's found a wife. He has a son.
Yeah, he's trying to leave everything behind. He's done his thing, isn't he? And
yeah. So that brings us into God of War 2018.
Mm-hmm.
So I had some issues with the first game, with God of War.
Okay.
We're purely going to talk about the PS4 and Ragnarok now. So I had some issues with it in terms of like the enemy variety was very shite in the first game.
Okay. Because there was more variety in Ragnarok.
Yeah,
I noticed that as a difference.
and also in terms of like there was um, God of War, the originals were known for really big like set piece bosses. Like you fight Kronos, who is the size of a mountain.
Yeah.
Like you fight Zeus, you fight Ares, you fight Hercules, you fight all these gods and legends essentially in all these like cool, really cool epic battles. And in God of War, the 2018, there wasn't really that many of them. You fight Boulder at the start. There's a dragon fight, and you fight Boulder again. But in terms of like big epic set piece battles, I think the coolest one for me was probably the dragon. But yeah, it was lacking in my opinion.
Okay. I mean, it didn't bother me because obviously I've not played the first three, so it's not something I've picked up on. I didn't realise that's something that was missing from the others. So
that's just my opinion on it. I thought it was missing it was missing a bit there, but at the same time, the story and the development of the characters was really really rich. So Kratos being that gruff, he doesn't know how to be a father again. Like he was a father to his daughter. He loved his daughter. Like there's no denying that one. You like from the games, you know that he did love his family. That's why he was so devastated when he found he killed them. But like so he doesn't really know how to be a father. He's afraid. He's afraid of being that person again, and it's revealed in this flashback scenes in Ragnarok. You know, you like when she's like hold him. His wife is literally hold your son, and he's afraid to, and I think that's just it's fantastic. The story development was amazing because you see sort of how it develops over the first game. That journey between them, their bonding. He revealing Kratos' lineage, stuff like that was absolutely fantastic in my opinion.
It's incredibly well written. It's obviously coming from someone who doesn't know about this stuff from the other games. There are obviously it does talk about some things. So some of the themes and things that you've talked about are things that I'm aware of, which is as far as a game goes. So somebody like me who can just jump in at this particular point, very well written that it's that inclusive. But yeah, it's one of the better character arcs. I think it'd be quite interesting if we went back to the start of God of War 2018 and see the difference with how far we've come, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. It'd be amazing. So there's something I want to mention actually. Something about God of War, the 2018 version, which made it it elevated it in a way, and it's I wouldn't say it was an easy way to elevate it because it's phenomenally difficult, but the entire game is one continuous shot, which is ridiculous, and it was just so well done, and like the fact that like you literally the opening where it start the game, it's Kratos chopping a tree. You press start, and it continues chopping the tree because that's the start of the game.
Yeah,
and it was like. Oh my! Oh, he puts the handprint, I think, on the tree, if I remember correctly. And it was so amazing. Like, and then the whole game just continued in one shot, and it was just because it was one journey, and it was
very very fluid, very seamless, and it helped to draw you in as well.
Yeah, and it was so well done, so well done. Like, I don't think. As far as I can remember, I personally have never played a game which is just one shot. I don't think, other than the first God of War. I can't, off the top of my head, I've played a lot of games in my time, but
I think it has been done before, but I don't know in what game. But I think the cool thing about it as well is they've done it, and they've done it for a reason, and that reason works. But it is definitely something you'd notice it, but at the same time, because it's so fluid, you might be you might be forgiven for thinking that it's not one camera shot, it's not one continuous fluid motion, because everything just blends so perfectly well together. And that's the same thing about the gameplay and the story. And yeah, having the camera do that as well is pretty impressive.
And obviously, it goes without saying that they did do the same thing in Ragnarok.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was one continuous shot. Just to touch on Ragnarok briefly, the transitions between playing as Kratos and playing as Atreus was fucking fantastic. Some of the ways they were done were unbelievably so cool, so cool. But yeah, anyway, back to God of War, the 2018 one. Yeah, so it was just. And it obviously it set the stage for Ragnarok in terms of what happens and everything, and it was just so cool. So I can't praise it enough, man, because it was just. And don't even get me started about Christopher Judge, by the way, as Christopher Judge voiced Kratos in the 2018 and Ragnarok games. And
I think the vocal performance for just about every character was spot on. I don't think there was a character I wasn't drawn into. Obviously, Kratos and Atreus being the lead characters needed to be properly on point. But yeah, everything that Kratos said, every grunt or any noise, it fit the character perfectly, and you knew what was going on. They did do a phenomenal job of casting in that. So it was it's weird when you think about these things. It seems so seamless, doesn't it? Like everything's like, yeah, that's right, and you kind of forget how much work actually goes in to make something so perfect. It looks easy when it's really not, but I think that's the charm of it.
Because the way with games development these days as well is a lot of motion capture as well.
Yes.
So they would have been physically there in a studio, in a room, wearing those mocap suits, doing
acting
a lot
everything and doing the movement,
doing a lot of this stuff. So it's phenomenal. Yeah, that they not only do they have to voice act it as well, but even their movements and stuff like that is just great. It's I can't talk.
It is a great time to be a gamer, really, isn't it? When you've got games that can be this compelling and also as subtle, like facial movements that really just elevate how characters and how scenes are. It's amazing to see how far the medium has come. And if you looked 20, 30 years ago, like, would you have imagined you'd have something so compelling as like the God of War franchise? And even though I'm just talking about the two most recent games, they're a brilliant art form, and the fluidity of the playing as well. Because I'm not typically a hack and slash kind of person. I don't really like the button mashing kind of thing, but I loved the combat. I loved everything in God of War. It is exactly what it needs to be, and I can see why there's so many amazing reviews.
Yeah, it was an unbelievable game. It was so I was like Ragnarok, especially because Ragnarok's in more recent memory, I guess. But I was gripped from start to finish with Ragnarok. I did everything. I got the platinum for that game. I did everything. I did every single thing I wanted to do. So I did it. There wasn't a trophy for 100% in each area, but I did that anyway because of how much I loved it. But so yeah, we'll come back to So I mean, coming back to it now. So I mean, God of War was fantastic. I think the real star of the show, Ragnarok, was. I'm not saying God of War 2018 was bad. Of course not. But Ragnarok was just. I don't know. I think just because the scale of the game was so much more epic, it really just brought it. Because obviously, God of War 2018 is about a journey between a father and a son.
Yeah.
Okay, that is the gist of it. They are on a journey to scatter his wife and Atreus' mother's ashes, and they need to scatter them on the highest peak. And what they don't realize is that the highest. She's referring to the highest peak in the 9 realms, which is in Jotunheim, which is the home of the giants, because as they find out, Kratos' wife used to be a giant. or sorry, not used to be, was a giant.
She is of the giant race.
She was of the giant race, and
While she was breathing, she was a giant.
yeah, I mean, she was the giant. That makes sense because
Yeah, it
you know,
is.
yeah. Anyway, thank you, James.
You
Mimir, can we just talk about Mimir, by the way?
Oh my god, such an amazing character.
I love Mimir. Probably one of my favourite characters.
Yeah.
So good. He was just funny, and he was just... But not only was he funny, but he genuinely cared about Atreus and Kratos. Like, he doesn't just call them brother because, like, that's just his thing. He genuinely considers Kratos to be a brother. And like Mimir and Atreus to be...
Every character goes on such a journey, don't they? It is
like,
you start off with the whole like it's the father and son, but it's they've got such a big family. And can we just say that I love how there's so much journey, but the weight of some of it, so people lose, people win, Sindri, for example, right at the end, that hit me quite hard.
Mate, that broke me. Have you done? I
know. Annoyingly, I've seen a picture and I know exactly what happens, but I will be going to Svartalheim to do that.
Okay, do that. If you're going to platinum it, by the way, or do everything, do that last.
Okay. Yeah, that annoyingly I know what it is, so that would be a nice send off. But just obviously, I know the whole episode is spoilers, but the whole, obviously the marble being such an important thing for the giants and having Odin sealed away in it, and you kind of feel really, really calm. You're like, oh, okay, fine, this is a good thing. And then just Sindri appears and just fucking smashes it, and then just disappears forever, you assume. And you just realise just how much people have sacrificed, and it's that shocked me.
Do you know Brock was one of my favourite characters?
I can't believe that. I mean, I can't believe the backstory of Brock.
I
you kind of get to know him, and then just as soon as you're like, oh, he was cool, he was funny, and you're like, oh, here's all the depth, and then it was just cut short, and it was heart wrenching. It really ripped you, didn't it?
It absolutely tore me a new one. I was like, I was like, no. I think once I had gameplay back, after the cutscene, I think I had to take a minute and just comprehend what had happened, because obviously, once again, spoiler warning. Like, the reveal that Tyr was never with them in the first place. It was Odin the entire time. Like, from the moment they rescue him to the moment that he reveals that he's Odin, it was never the real Tyr. Tyr was always locked away the entire time. And it was like, that's just unbelievable.
I think it was done really well, because when we first meet Tyr, you're definitely given the whole like, there's something a bit weird there, isn't there? But as it goes on, Tyr becomes... It's a quirky thing of like, oh, he's not who he is anymore. It's like he's done what Kratos wanted to do. He's put down the sword, all that sort of thing. And then you kind of forget the weirdness, and you accept it, and then suddenly, bang, it's Odin. You're like, oh, fuck.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's you feel really responsible. I know you can't do anything, and then you look at Sindri, who is just this broken character, and then like from then on, he's completely, he's been coming out of his shell, something he's been really struggling with, because he's obviously had to deal with the trauma of what happened to Brock way in the past. And then he's just completely broken now, and you obviously see him, his eyes are always red, and bloodshot kind of thing, and you feel like you've really let him down, and he's such an amazing character that just doesn't want anything to do with you anymore. It's a loss in a different way, and it obviously written very well, because it affects you, and you're like, oh my god.
Yeah, and it's because the lengths he went to save Brock the first time. Yeah. And obviously Brock's missing his piece of his soul because of that. But because he dies in the middle of the realms, there's no saving him. So like the emotional devastation after knowing what you went to having lost your brother not only once but twice
yeah.
is
And knowing that literally moving heaven and earth and all the things you've done in the past, you
can't do it again.
You can't. You can't do it again.
You can't.
And it's not that you won't. It's that you physically can't. You've already proven that you will do everything, and then the universe has gone no. And like when you go and get the Dropnir sphere as well, and sort of Brock, he's desperately wanted to meet this I can't remember
the lady.
Yeah, and she doesn't see him because he hasn't got the soul, and he finds out and how torn up he is, and it's kind of shitty in a way because the dwarves lose so much, and you kind of forget that this everything has a cost that must be paid. It's really shit.
Yeah, it's horrible, and like they went into depth with so much though, even like side stuff as well, like the Berserker graves. Like Mimir's got a whole backstory there, and like with everything, and like the Queen of the Valkyries. Obviously, Freya lost her title as Queen of the Valkyries.
Obviously, I've not done any post main game thing, so I don't know how much about Gunnar there is in there, but I will be obviously looking in and doing all that.
But yeah, it's like so I won't go too much into it, but the depth they go into there, like. They
did it in 2018.
So
I really enjoyed the Valkyrie hunting in that, and the fact there was a big story behind that and everything. And I like how they tied that into Ragnarok as well, because they talk about, I haven't seen you since you were Valkyrie hunting or whatever, and it expects you to have seen all this extra world. So the side quests are just as important as the main quests, because everything happens in the realms affects what goes on in the other game and everything. So that's quite a cool little thing. It's it does want you to know everything, because I don't know much about Norse or Greek mythology, but what I do know is there's a lot of depth to it, and the fact that they've managed to try and cram as much as they can in.
Yeah,
doing it with side quests is another cool way of doing it. But yeah, I like that. I do.
And I want to talk about 4. So 4's character development was, I mean, obviously it's just going to be a bit of a broken record. We're going to be like, this character development was amazing, this character development was amazing, and it's because it's true, it was. But like there was the fight in the tavern, essentially in the mead hall, was amazing, and like it just showed, like, 4 had just completely essentially given up, because it didn't matter what he did. Odin was just a dickhead to him.
I really enjoyed, that tavern fight scene and speaking to him, really showed a lot. But I love how Mimir's stories, someone who's been a confidant of Asgard and been there and seen behind the wall, all his stories in 2018 paints this really strong picture of Odin and this strong picture of Thor, and you think everything is calculating and done for a reason, and then you meet Thor and Odin at the start, and of Ragnarok, and it really hammers that home quite literally, with Mjolnir. And as the game goes on, and you see what Thor really is, and it beefs Odin up a lot to be like, I'm the controlling one. My son will do as I say, and he is a killer. And he's not allowed to think. He does as I tell him, and you kind of retread over those stories, and you just think it's just an angry man who wants to be in control, and his son doesn't know how to deal with it and is scared for his family, and he's just turned to drink, and he just does stuff. Half the people he's killed was just probably because he did stuff. And it's really interesting because it breaks that character down, and he deserved better in the end, I will say.
He's a broken man. He was a broken man. Like,
he's what Kratos could have been, or was, way back, I suppose, when you said, obviously Kratos kills his family. He could have ended up like Thor. It's two, it's different sides of the same coin, as it were.
Yeah, he could have gone on the path of vengeance, or he could have gone on the path of just complete despair and drinking and so do you know what, I never thought about it that way, so that's actually a really interesting take on it. But I loved his design as well. Like he like when you kind of, because the whole like you think of Thor and you think of Chris Hemsworth from Marvel, but realistically, like Thor was like he's powerful, but like he's a big dude, and he's just built like a brick shit house essentially, and you can see the power that he has, like.
He was the power of Asgard, and I don't know whether or not if it was just because I don't know what your experience was, but mine, that the Odin fight versus the Thor fight, the Thor one was more difficult, had more layers to it, and it really does show that Odin's just he's very, very clever, isn't he? And he's very manipulative. And if you take away Thor, you take away Thrud and Sif, because that's a lot of political power there as well, and then you take away like the Valkyries,
Heimdall.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Heimdall. Yeah, exactly. What else has he got? So yeah, and he's got the Einherjar as well. Like one domino falls, the rest starts to go as well. So he is a man who talks his way through things. So yeah, which again makes it very, very interesting, where he turns to violence against Thor at the end, which is not something I saw. I thought Thor would walk off and be like, "Nah, fuck you guys," and then he'd just go off to see Thrud and Sif. I thought that'd be how it would end. I was very surprised.
Yeah, it's very, very cool, and there are two different fights as well. Like the Thor fights, both of them are just a lot more brutal, in a way. They're a lot more brutal, and then you have the Odin fight, which is it's different in a way. Like it's still brutal, but it's not like it feels like the Thor fight is a lot more physical, whereas the Odin fight
is more mental. Yeah.
Well,
it's 100% true on that, because the Thor fight is he's fast and he hits hard, and if he hits you, he's gonna fucking hit you. And there's a lot of the red rather than the yellow. Like, you dodge, you don't shield from that man, you dodge. And then when you get to Odin, it reminds you about mechanics of the game. So he's got like the extra shielding, so I need to use the axe, or I need to use the blades here to break through that. So it is making you think more, which is way more in line with Odin's character. So yeah, you're definitely right with that.
Yeah, it just makes it really interesting. And then the tying into a few other things, the Garm, releasing Garm, which is essentially is a soulless beast, and it's ripping holes in the realms and all that stuff. And then Kratos is like that little wisp of magic, like when Fenrir dies at the start, and I love how they pulled that back at the end, and you remember it. You kind of like, it's a small thing, and you're like, what is that? Yeah. And then you're hours and hours and hours into the game.
Yeah, you've probably forgotten it because so much has happened.
You've forgotten about it, and then like someone says about their magic being magic in your knife, and you're in Atreus' knife, and you're like, oh yeah, there was that thing, huh? But you still don't know what it is, and then it gets to, and then that brings Fenrir back, and obviously the lore with Loki is that he does have a giant wolf called Fenrir, and it's like, oh my god, or he just has a wolf called Fenrir. It's like, oh my god, cool. And then when he said the name Fenrir at the start of the game, I was like, no way, Fenrir, and then it died, and I was like, no, that's so sad.
So you didn't realise, we'd never realised that Fenrir was going to inhabit the literal Hound of Hell.
Yes, and I was like, oh my god, that's so cool, because Fenrir's such a good boy. Then they brought it back, and yeah, it was just, oh my god, it was so good. Just everything about that game. I think we can talk about this game.
I get the feeling we're going to gush for hours at this, and we remember more and more and talk about it. But I think that's kind of the great thing about it, is that you can get tied up in this game, and it's real mythology. And I don't know how close to the stories they've followed, but they've obviously written something with great source material, and something that there is literal followings and religions that have that stand by all this. So it is great that they seem to have done a good justice to not be skin deep with it.
Yeah,
because it could have been very skin deep. I was interested to hear the stories from the original God of War, because I read reviews in the past and everyone said it was great, but on the face of it, it just looked like a hack and slash game. It looked like your sort of Devil May Cry kind of thing, and that was kind of why I wasn't interested in it.
It was like they obviously didn't go into the same depth that they did in 2018 and Ragnarok, but yeah, like.
But the groundwork was clearly there. Otherwise, because if not, it's a bit like going, you know what? Let's make Tekken into a really long, like 3-hour film game where there's one fight in it or something. I realise there's a convoluted backstory to Tekken. I probably shouldn't have said that as the example, but that's the point. Though they obviously had enough groundwork with the stories that they could do this, and it didn't feel jarring. Because I think a lot of the games community would have gone, "Why have you done this?" if it didn't work.
So I want to bring us on to our final sort of talk of the episode. I want to bring us back to the ending of Ragnarok. Okay,
right.
And basically, essentially, it's so Asgard gets destroyed. Odin dies completely. Like Atreus rips his soul out of his body because he's learned how to wield that giant magic, and rips his soul out of his body, puts it into a soul stone, and they're like, okay, what do we do with it now? Odin's never going to bother anyone as long as blah blah blah. Sindri makes the decision for everyone because he's so filled with grief and rage at Odin for killing his brother that he completely obliterates the soul stone so that he can't come back. Odin is dead officially, 100%, cannot be revived. He is dead. And I think that's great. And then obviously Freya sacrifices himself to save everyone when Asgard's being destroyed. Which we did go into depth with Freya, but we didn't know a lot about it. But even then, his sacrifice had weight to it, and it felt amazing. And I was, a lot of that game really did make me feel, and I was like, damn, you're making me feel. This is not nice. But anyway, so then obviously they wake up. Kratos has that journey up the hill again, talking to people, blah blah blah, and then they find out about the fate. And Atreus doesn't see the picture with Kratos as sort of being a god that's being revered by people and by other gods. Essentially, Kratos could be the next Allfather if he so desired, and because of that imagery that he sees, he recruits Mimir and recruits Freya to go and repair the realms, because there is fallout from the fall of Asgard. There are the
there's debris scattered across.
There's
the
the debris and the remainder of the Iron here, and I would 100% recommend that you do
the post Ragnarok stuff.
Yeah, post Ragnarok stuff. Go to Niflheim, the snow world. Do the one there. Obviously, leave Svartalfheim to last, but if you can, just not necessarily platinum game if you don't want to, James, but do those.
Oh, I definitely
ones.
want to do. I definitely want to do more. There's which is again a great thing about the game is you finish it and go, cool, right. Oh, good, I can do more.
Also, there isn't. I'm not going to say why, but I'm going to tell you. Go into Alfheim, and I don't remember where it is, but there's something you'll see in Alfheim, which is very very cool.
Okay, because I think I've got more to do in Alfheim. I did the I've forgotten what they're called now, but the big flying jellyfish stuff. I did all that in the desert.
Okay, yeah.
That was quite cute.
There's a nice little scene you'll see. I'll say that. I'll say no more than that. But yeah. So anyway, so Kratos could become the Allfather, or he could not. It's up to him. Like Freya never hid these prophecies so that they could make their own decisions.
Yeah,
I think we're coming full circle. We've talked about that already, but it's such a nice thing. Like and also Kratos being willing to let Atreus go.
Yeah, it's a good thing that he's let Atreus go, and then he gets to see his final fate, as it were, or what he could become, because that's in a way his reward. Because if he didn't let Atreus go, and he hadn't learned from everything that had happened, he wouldn't be the person that the realms needed him to be. So that wouldn't have been his future.
Because it happens. I mean, it happens earlier in the game. They have their falling outs and they have their arguments, which is why he runs off to Asgard and all that stuff. And but then he comes back and they talk it out. They proper talk it out, and they really he's like. Kratos says those words, and I just want to talk about it because it's such a cool thing that happens, man. You know exactly what I'm saying. So, obviously, the start of God of War 2018 when Atreus, fails to kill the deer and kind of messes it up, and he says to Kratos, "I'm sorry," and Kratos says, "Don't be sorry, be better." Okay, and then in fucking Ragnarok, when Kratos, he's the growth that the man has, he says to Atreus, "I'm sorry," and then Atreus turns around and goes, "Don't be sorry, be better." And it just shows it's like he's not afraid to say that to Kratos, but Kratos doesn't get angry about it, and it just shows the growth of these characters, and it's phenomenal, and it's probably one of my favorite things about the game. Just that little throwback to 2018.
You could argue that's the pinpoint of, okay, they've done their journey. This is it's taken longer than it needed to,
but they've accepted it. They've grown. Kratos has accepted that Atreus is becoming a man. Atreus has grown up. Atreus can make decisions that have meaning.
Oh, and the whole Loki go, Atreus stay. I'm like, he's a happy and sad dad.
He's like Atreus. My son Atreus will stay here with me in my heart, but Loki, son of the giants,
he has to go. He has to go and be who he is.
He has to go and be who he is. And I think that part killed me, man. I think it actually broke me.
The more I think about it, the more I'm like,
the more I just want to shed a tear again. But but yeah, I think, as you said, we can talk about this forever. But we both clearly love the game. I think one day I might go back and play it again, maybe. But I did platinum it, so it might be a while. But if I think we'll call it a day there.
Yeah,
but,
I am glad that I finally played them.
I'm glad you finally finished it, because I wanted to talk. I've been waiting to talk with this man about this game.
People talked about 2018 when it came out, and I didn't really care, because I thought, it's just God of War. I don't really know much about it, and I'm not really interested. And it was only when Ragnarok came out that I thought maybe I should, and I'm really very glad that I did. I love a game with a great story. I think I can forgive terrible gameplay if it's a good story, but God of War had everything. There wasn't anything I could complain about. And I know I've said to you as well, Jono, and you've agreed that games, when they feel like they're winding down and then they don't, and you realise, there's hours to go, sometimes can overstay their welcome, and God of War has never done that once.
No, it definitely didn't. I was like, I must be near the end now, and it was like, no, it's still going. I was like, it's still going.
And that was good.
It's still going.
I was happy to have all of that.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, we're still going. I was like, do you know what? I'm okay with this. But so if for any reason you've been listening to this entire episode and you haven't played God of War, by all means, please go and play it, because it's a phenomenal game. But if you have, if you have played it, let us know what you think in the comments below. As always, thank you very much for listening. If there's anything you want us to talk about, again, let us know.
Yeah.
As I said, nothing's off the table. But yeah, go play God of War. It's a phenomenal game. We could probably carry on talking about this game for another hour, to be honest. But I think we'll call it a day here.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for listening, and have a lovely day.
Take care.